Um, I'm just a regular citizen, and basically how this all started was I watched a PBS special on plastics and the problem it is across the world, and then I said, well, let's, at our church during coffee hour, let's try to go plastic free. Well, that was a dream, okay? That was truly a dream, because I suddenly discovered when I went myself to the grocery store, not advertising anything. And so I always thought that if things really work, that they were wrapped in that paper. And the same thing is if you wanted to bake your own goodies, okay? Don't lay the cardboard inside. That thing that you think is right. It can be. And many companies are putting little symbols at the bottom that tell you here it says take it off with recycling, and then the plastic wrapper, drop it off with your store and see them. Drop off this at the store and see they'll recycle. Okay? I'm not talking in this thing anymore. Forgetting. Okay. And so you have a question.
I was going to say, and I went to ShopRite the other day to find out where can I drop these off. Nobody knew. Nobody knew where it was.
No, but not for this. This is not that plastic that you see in those plastic bags is like what we used to get our groceries in, and then also our vegetables in, okay, and your newspaper probably in, okay. That plastic, we hope, okay, all we can say is we hope, is collected at the grocery store and taken off to. It can be. We see the plastic wood, and Trex is one of the brand names of plastic wood. They use that plastic to make that, okay? But is all of that going there, in honesty? And like Jenny has pointed out, a lot of people just walk out the store and put their garbage in there, okay? And is the garbage, the person at the store going to be like our Carl Grimm and separate it all?
Your plastic wood fence will deteriorate eventually, and that will end up in a landfill also.
That's called downcycling. You take the original plastic thing and make it into something else. And when you downcycle something, you take that initial plastic molecule, which has many toxic things attached to it to make it into whatever plastic it is. When you make it into something else, it becomes a little more friable. So over time, it is releasing a lot of plastic. It's also releasing a lot of that toxic material, okay? Anyway, that's a separate subject. So this little innocuous thing that we call plastic has crept into our lives. It is truly everywhere in our lives, everywhere. It's impossible to get away from it. So, but and I think the hard part is because it's so little and so much a part of our lives that we haven't even noticed that it's entered into our lives. And it's entered into our lives in the natural world, and it's gotten into environmental justice questions with the production, and into our pocketbooks. We are, through our taxes, paying for it to be disposed of, okay? Okay? And it's affecting everybody's health. So Terry Lucan, a nurse practitioner and a friend, is here to talk about how plastics affects our health, because she has to leave in a while. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I know most of you, but I'm Terry Lucan. I'm a nurse practitioner, and I am not an expert on plastic, but but Daria asked me to speak a little bit about hormones and endocrine disruptors because everybody hears that term. It's an endocrine disrupting chemical, and no one really knows what that is. So I'll start with saying thank you, Daria, for putting this together. I do have notes because there's a lot of facts in this, and I hope it's not too boring, and I hope it's not too technical. So Daria asked me to speak a little bit about hormones and their role in our bodies and how plastic affects their functioning. Hormones are chemicals that coordinate different functions in our bodies by carrying messages through our bloodstream to our organs, our skin, our muscles, and other tissues. These signals tell our body what to do and when to do it. Hormones control many different processes, including metabolism, growth and development, the sleep cycle, sexual functioning, reproduction, and more. They also control homeostasis, which is the medical term for the internal balance in our system. So that's things like your blood pressure, your metabolism, your blood sugar regulation. So all those things are mediated by your hormones. Hormones are created by glands, for the most part, that make up our endocrine system. So like our circulatory system is our blood vessels. Our endocrine system is the glands and the hormones that they produce. Glands and organs in the endocrine system, and I don't want to get too technical, but it includes the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, the thyroid and parathyroid glands, the adrenal glands, the pancreas, I said thyroid already, the ovaries and testes. Now, some bodily tissues that release hormones are not part of the endocrine system, and these include adipose tissue, which is fat. For many, many years, we thought that fat was an inert substance, but it's really an organ, and it is an active organ, and it creates a lot of hormones, including estrogen, which is very interesting because it's one of the reasons that women who are underweight tend to have a much more difficult menopause than women who are overweight because adipose is an estrogen-producing tissue. But also our kidneys produce hormones, our liver produces hormones, and our gut. We're learning so much more about the microbiome and all that goes on in the gut. So scientists have identified over 50 hormones so far. And I won't go into all of them, but here are some examples of glands and the hormones that they produce. And you've probably heard of a lot of them, and I'm not going to tell you about their functioning. That would take all day and bore everyone to death. Our pituitary gland secretes growth hormone and thyroid stimulating hormone. Our thyroid, and we all know about our thyroid, little thing in the base of our neck that controls our metabolism, that secretes T3, T4, and calcitonin. Our adrenals, which are glands that sit on top of our kidneys, they secrete cortisone. Most people know about cortisone, adrenaline, which is also known as epinephrine, and androgens, which is a sex hormone. Our pancreas, our ever so important pancreas, secretes insulin and glucagon, so that's a lot of our blood sugar metabolism. And our ovaries secrete testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. So hormones are very specific and will only act on the part of the body that has receptors for them. It's sort of like a lock and key system. If the hormone's key fits into the lock, it will deliver a message that will tell that organ what to do and when to do it. Hormones communicate in two different ways, gland to gland and gland to organ. So gland to gland communication, one gland releases a hormone that stimulates another gland and changes the levels of hormone that that gland secretes. So an example of this is the communication between your pituitary and your thyroid. The pituitary releases thyroid stimulating hormone. We probably all have heard of TSH. It's the the blood test your doctor or nurse practitioner does to see if your thyroid is functioning. But that comes from the pituitary. It doesn't even come from the thyroid. But it triggers your thyroid to release hormones like T3 and T4 that affect many bodily functions, including metabolism. The other mechanism of hormone communication is gland to organ. An example of this is when your pancreas releases insulin, which acts on your muscles and your liver to process glucose, which is the fuel that our body runs on. In the end, everything we eat is broken down to glucose, and insulin, I always like to think of it as the key that allows the glucose to go into the cells. So diabetics, or people who are pre-diabetic, are often insulin resistant, which means they have plenty of insulin, but the key is just not working as well, so it just doesn't get into the cells. Hormones are very sensitive, and changes in levels can cause significant changes in our bodies. The relationships between hormones and between plastics and hormone dysregulation is just beginning to be understood. There is so much more about this that we don't know than what we do know. Plastics contain many chemicals that Daria will likely go into more fully later. Some of these chemicals are classified by the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, and the Endocrine Society as endocrine disruptors. And we now call them EDCs, endocrine disrupting chemicals. So I'll use the word EDC, and that's what it stands for. An endocrine disruptor is a chemical that either mimics or interferes with the body's endocrine system. It may work directly on a gland, causing it to make too much or too little of a hormone. It may block the pathway between the hormone and the end organ that it's working on, or it may mimic the hormone and cause the body to react. EDCs have been linked to higher rates of some cancers, diabetes, reproductive disorders, neurological impairments. I have a whole list here. Changes in fertility, and many other medical conditions. Conservative estimates indicate that there are more than 1,000 manufactured EDCs in plastics. And they include BPA, which Daria can give you, biophenol phosphate, flame retardants, phthalates, which I'll talk a little bit about, PFAs, dioxins, and toxic metals. I'll briefly speak about one group of endocrine disruptors, sort of as an example, because they all work in similar ways. Those are the phthalates. Phthalates make plastics soft and flexible. So they're put into many different plastics because, one of the good things about plastics is that they have flexibility, and that's where the phthalates come in. They're found in many personal care items like soaps and cosmetics and hairsprays. They're found in vinyl flooring. It's a high phthalate level. They're found in garden hoses, things like kids' teethers and kids' rattles. So the kids are like sucking on phthalates all the time. We don't fully understand how phthalates affect health, but it is thought that they interfere with estrogen receptors by mimicking estrogen. This makes them even more dangerous for women, especially pregnant women, because those phthalates are getting into the fetus's bloodstream. Based on animal research, which is another topic we could talk about forever, and observational studies in humans, phthalates are suspected to contribute to behavioral issues. There's a phthalate autism link, inflammation, and inflammation has gotten its everyone now knows about inflammation. It was something we only thought inflammation was when you had a swollen joint, it was inflamed. But the inflammatory process is a huge detrimental thing to our health that we're learning more and more about, especially as we've uncovered the genome and the bio, understanding more about how the gut works. Reproductive problems, and it's even been linked to genital defects in developing fetuses. So this is not minor. Research has also found that they lead to decreased testosterone levels in women, which can lead to increased menopausal symptoms, decreased libido, muscle weakness, and alterations in sleep. A recent study, like last week, in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that women who have high exposure to phthalates have a 30 to 63% higher chance of developing diabetes. Now, as Daria will tell you, it's impossible to not use plastics. But one of the things I've always thought is that perfect is the enemy of good. So while we can't eliminate them, we can certainly decrease. And I'm sure Daria is going to talk much more about this. But ways to decrease plastic use, not using single-use water bottles. I think we all know that, but there's a really high, you know how mushy and flexible they are, high phthalate level in those. Using non-plastic products for cooking, especially in the microwave. Microwave really accentuates the elimination of free radicals and EDCs. Looking for plastics, you know, the little triangle at the bottom, 1 in 7 is the worst. 2, 4, and 5 are still plastics, but they're better. So anything with a 1 or a 7 has a super high phthalate level, and you want to avoid it. And avoiding plastics as much as possible. Now, does everybody know about the EWG, the Environmental Working Group? That's a fantastic website. They have a great downloadable thing on EDCs if you want to learn more about it. But they also have many, many different databases. Like you can search in their cosmetics database to see which cosmetics are free from EDCs. So it's really a great website. There is an urgent need for effective public health policy about that. And I mean, we won't go into politics, we'd be here all day. On the national level, the FDA is not recognizing these chemicals as health, you know, they may increase a slight health risk, but they're really not doing what they need to do. So a lot of local and state governments are starting to regulate them. I believe they've taken them out of plastic baby bottles. I mean, when you think about it, these tiny little things are sucking in this bottle that has phthalates in it. And it's especially important since plastic production is it's going to increase at least 33% over the next 10 years. So plastics are here to stay, and you know, we do have to protect our health. So thank you, Daria, for inviting me. I hope this was interesting. Questions?
If you have a question.
Can you spell? Is it PH or TH? Okay.
The PH is silent. So there's probably another language that you could say that's PH,
T. Oh my God.
A-L-A-T-E-S.
Thank
So
you.
say phthalates. At
PHTH.
first I was trying to say phthalates, but then I ended up slobbering all over myself. So, any other questions?
Any idea?
Environmental working group is a great group. I've used it like sunscreen. Sunscreen include a lot of bad things in them, okay? And they go through a whole list of sunscreens you've never heard of, but are on the market, okay, that don't have them.
No, it's not on. It's just for the
It is. It's not magnifying our voice. It's just directly putting it into the video.
What do you know about the plastics that are used in CPAP masks? You're breathing those 8 hours a night. How many people use it for sleep apnea?
I don't actually know the content of them, but obviously, you know, there was a recall of many different CPAP machines because of an increased cancer risk. And it makes me think, is it the actual machine or, you know, and you're wearing them on your face? Unfortunately, you know, plastics really serve a very important need in our society. Like, what else could you use a CPAP machine made out of? Wool? You know, it's just not going to create a seal. Glass.
But it would be heavy. It have to be very thin.
And if you roll over, you're dead. So it's tough. It really is tough. But, you know, obviously we want to do the best we can. I know, you know, simple things like I see those water bottles all over the place. And if we could just outlaw those, you know, and people just bring a gosh darn bottle or, you know, luckily we're in a place where our tap water is good, but, you know, everyone's buying water and the recycling issue is another thing, because a lot of these things don't get recycled, and I wonder what happens when they do recycle them. A lot of these chemicals are, let out. So Daria's really the expert, but thank you for giving me some time.
Thank you, Terry. I myself have to take thyroid medicine, and I looked up, and Terry's presentation gave me a lot of information, really. Okay. Like she said, one of the things is it affects your metabolism. The chemical process in your gut that breaks up food to be a nutrient is regulated by your thyroid also. If you need to breathe deep, that's regulated by your thyroid. And it controls your body temperature, your cholesterol level, and menstrual cycles. I mean, the hormone system is so complicated and so intertwined that we, the laypersons, really have a hard time totally understanding it. But the problem is plastics are a hormone disruptor. They disrupt it. They mess up with that whole system. Like some people are more affected by it and other people are not. Just like some people have hay fever and some people don't. Some people are just more affected by certain things. So into the natural world, okay? So I'm going to finish the natural world, and then any questions, we'll answer those questions. So in the natural world, single-use plastic, which is like that little thing, it's plastic that we use just once and throw it away, or recycle it. We hope we'll recycle it, okay? And in the ocean, the 10 most numerous things that are in the ocean that the people that study this are beverage bottles, chips and snack bags, cutlery like knives and forks that are made out of plastic, food containers, plastic bags, hygiene products, cigarette butts. There's a lot of cigarette butts that are thrown. Most of them are thrown out your window, and then they make it into a stream, and then they go on all the way to the ocean. Cotton buds to clean your ears. They're no longer cotton. It's polyester. Okay? And balloons. Okay? Balloons that are released and are not thrown out properly. Those are made out of plastic. Okay? So those are the 10 most common things that are found in the ocean. And they have found that the projection is that, like she was saying, the production of plastic is increasing dramatically. They are found that 2050, they think, and think how light plastic is on the most part. Some of this plastic is not this. Some of it's going to be, they now make fish nets out of plastic, okay, those huge fish nets that are used for commercial fishing, okay? And when it's something wrong with it, the fisherman just leaves it, okay, and dumps it in the ocean. But anyway, by 2050, they say plastic will weigh more than all the fish in the ocean. That's how much how big the plastic problem is. And some of what I call some not so fun facts, okay? So here's a bird that's got plastic in its beak, okay? And they're now finding that something like 90% of birds that are living along the ocean or in the ocean have some plastic. Some eat more than others. And here's a very dramatic case of a poor bird that basically died from starvation. Its belly was so full of plastic, he thought he was full. And he didn't eat anymore. And of course, he can't digest plastic, okay? All of the sea turtles that are tested have plastic bags in their stomach. They look like in the ocean, they look like jellyfish, and that's what they like to eat. They like to eat jellyfish. Okay. So are there any questions about the natural world and how plastic is? There's probably a million others. They actually even have a disease for birds. It's called plasticoides. And I kind of, looking at it from my always going to this, it could be a good study case, okay? How is plastic affecting their metabolism, We could learn from it probably. So do we have any questions on the natural world? No. Well, I'm hoping to end with a happy note at the end, okay? Happier, not totally happy, but happier. I mean, that's me. Rather than sit and be depressed, take action, I find that calms and drives the depression away, really, okay? Okay, so what is plastic? Today, probably 98% of it is coming from, in our world today, in the United States, oil and gas are fracked, okay? Very rarely do they just drill down like they did in the old days. It's all done by fracking. So that's why I said it's coming from fracked gas and oil. Okay, and so what they do is to produce all the things that come out of gas and oil, they send it to a distillation plant. And distillation is boiling something, and then at certain levels, molecular levels, different things come off into the tubes. Back in science class, you remember you boiled something, and there'd be in a glass thing, and then there'd be a glass tube, and it would collect over here. That's distillation, basically, okay? So the various things that can be distilled out of oil and gas are petroleum gas, gasoline, naphtha, paraffin, diesel, fuel oil, lubricating oil, and bitumen. The naphtha is what is sent over to the plastic producing plant, okay? The plant that produces plastic. They take naphtha out of mainly out of natural gas today, okay? And the manufacturing plant is then, usually it's located in a low-income area or out in a rural area with very poor zoning. Because even though they know that they're releasing horrible things in the air pollution from that plastic plant, benzene, which affects our bone marrow, which makes blood, okay, and can cause anemia, toluene, which causes headache, dermatitis, insomnia, kidney damage, ethyl benzene causes respiratory problems and can damage the liver and kidneys. Hydrogen sulfide can cause tremors, convulsions, headaches, and seizures. So that's being released. And in the case of nearby Pennsylvania, and that's the picture of the plant that you have on your handout, it's almost finished. That plant is almost in production. And they have a very, their legislature is Republican, but their governor is Democratic. And he is saying to the plant, you've got to follow the Clean Air Act. Because they weren't following the Clean Air Act. And they're not going to unless somebody makes them do it, okay? And even with that, some of these things are going to be released. So that's an environmental justice element to the whole thing. That we are, and just in 2023, they are building over 300 new plastic manufacturing plants in the United States. Questions?
So these plants, if they're less than a certain distance from where people live, they're bad, but if they're far enough away from civilization, it's okay? Is this how these companies are getting away with locating them, in rural areas or?
I think it has more to do with zoning. There are parts, even in New York State, if you go to certain parts of upstate, they have no zoning regs. So they don't have a planning board that says, do this, do that, keep it, whatever. Okay? I think it's just financially easier because going through the whole planning process is an expensive process. It really is. That's my thought on that whole thing. Does anybody else have questions about this part of the process? No. But then maybe you've heard on the news Cancer Alley in Louisiana. So just up from where their big port is a whole string of manufacturing plants, okay? And most of them have to do with the oil and gas industry, okay? And the amount of people that live in that area, usually most of those people are poor, okay? And it's the funny part of it is, the little circle of life is, my father worked for the oil companies, okay? And we went to Baton Rouge to live, okay? Which is right there in Cancer Alley. We didn't live there very long, but it's a source of jobs, but it's also, they have very high incident of cancer in Cancer Alley, okay? And it's what's being emitted from all those plants is, there's a clear link, okay, there. So in the night, I was chair of the Town of Austin's Conservation Advisory Committee in the 1980s, and that's when we really started pushing recycling. We had to convince the town to recycle, honestly, back in the 1980s, okay? And so this was going to be our savior. Recycling was going to be our savior. And I have to say, the plastic industry was helping us create that, telling us it was going to be a solution, okay? Telling us it was going to be a solution, okay? And I bought into it. I bought in it, fully bought into it. And I think even today, until I've done a lot of reading, and that's only in the last 6 months, I was totally into it, okay? And it's kind of hard to give up. It's like, but I don't know what the solution is, so at least we can do that, I feel like. But in many cases, all we're doing is downscycling, okay? So let's take number 1, which we just found out has phthalates in it, okay? It's used for bottles and some jars. It can be recycled into fiber for sleeping bags and carpet, okay? But remember, when you downcycle something, you're taking that plastic particle and making it into something else, but it's more fragile now, okay? So it's going to release some of those. Remember, there's a main molecule, the main molecule all the plastics have, but they attach different things to it to give it different properties. And most of those things that they attach to are very toxic. And so as you downcycle, it becomes more fragile, okay? And in the case, I know number 1 is another thing, like Polar Tech. Remember when Polar Tech came out and it was such a wonderful, and it still is a wonderful, it keeps you, it repels water, it keeps you warm, it's lightweight. But every time you wash it, you're releasing little pieces of plastic down the drain and out to the river and onto the ocean, okay? I don't know there's a solution, but you should be aware anyway. I feel like you should be aware. Yes.
When the plastic bottles are recycled, is that plastic ever used to make new plastic bottles?
I'm not a total expert. That's what they give you the impression. They give you that impression that it is. But I don't really, everything I read, it's not really being made into more plastic bottles, okay? Because like I was saying, when they try to make it into something else, it loses many of its characteristics, you know? And I'd be very surprised if it's made into new plastic bottles, because then it would release more things, you know? And it wouldn't have all the characteristics of the original plastic. So number 2 is our milk jugs, detergent, and shampoo bottles. And these can be recycled into non-food bottles and recycling bins. And number 3 is what we use for personal care and household goods, and it can be recycled into PVC. It is a PVC, number 3, which is a lot of our plumbing, okay? And then it goes on, okay? And then we have this nice little clump, number 7. Number 7 is really just all the plastics that don't fit into the other things. And it is, for the most part, across the United States, if they actually get it, it is usually landfilled or incinerated, usually, okay? It's a mixture of plastics, not really reused, but can be incinerated to produce energy. They consider that recycling. Incinerating it, and then the incineration plant makes electricity, okay? And they consider that recycling. So up to now, this whole thing called recycling has been on our backs. It's our responsibility to wash it and put it out to the curb, okay? And the manufacturer has had no responsibility at all. No responsibility. And in the United States, as of 2021, only in 2018, 4.5% of the plastics were recycled. In 2021, it went down to 3.5. So instead of recycling more plastics, and across the United States, just taking the whole clump of all the different things, metal, glass, plastic, paper, our recycling rate is something like, at the very best, 9%. Westchester County has a good program, and but the unfortunate, the part that makes me a little worried is when you try to contact Westchester County and say, well, after you've bagged up all the number 1 plastic or because they have at their plant, they use laser beams to differentiate and separate the different kinds of plastic. Where does it go? Who do you sell it to? Who do you give it to? Whatever. They won't answer the question. They say, we can't answer that. I don't know. You could be you want to be on the positive side. You could say, well, they've got somebody that'll buy it, which is really hard in a lot of cases, or that we don't think you'd like where it's going. Okay. I don't know. I don't know the answer there. Yeah, here.
Have you approached any politicians to see if they can find out answers?
I personally have not. I know I know Peekskill has a group, because where does everything go that doesn't go to the recycling or your yard waste is now being composted? It goes up to Peekskill's incineration, Charles Point, okay? And so the people in Peekskill are really tired of it because they have very high asthma rates there, and they'd like to get rid of the incinerator. The incinerator is 40 years old, and it's probably around its lifetime, but the county just renewed their contract for 20 years. Because really we don't know what to do, okay? Reducing, the thing is, so we in Westchester County got really good at reducing our garbage. That incinerator, to make money and to stay into business, it is currently even doing it now, taking other people's from other counties' garbage to incinerate, okay? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I assume one way to get the information about how they offload the recycled plastic is to do a Freedom of Information Act request. And with respect to the county and the plant in Peekskill, I imagine they just couldn't figure out what else to do but to renew the contract. It's an extremely difficult issue.
Extremely difficult issue. I don't have the solution there, okay? I don't. And there are some, I'm going to just concentrate on plastics though today, okay? Because there's some really big issues here. Okay, so what happens with plastic? Okay, so you or somebody in your car, okay, hopefully not you, throws that plastic thing out the window, okay? And then a rainstorm comes along and it goes down a storm drain, and the storm drains for the most part, a lot of them in the old days would go, they combine the sewers and the storm drains, but today they've separated them. So most of the storm drains, especially in northern Westchester, go into a stream, then they go into the river, and then they go into the ocean. Okay, so plastic is out there floating around in the water. Sun is hitting it, and on a warm summer day, it's warm, and it will break up into smaller and smaller pieces, okay, with time. And especially the plastic that's made its way out all the way to the ocean. So it's gone down to where our visual pictures can see it. It will be the size of sand, little pieces of sand. But it's even breaking down smaller to what they call nano, which we can't see, okay? And so if you look at the water cycle, the way that we have clouds are formed for the most part, they're out in the ocean, the water evaporates off the ocean, forms a cloud, and then it moves to wherever it's going, and then when it gets full enough from other combinations of things, it rains. We are raining little nanoparticles of plastic everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world. So plastic, as we heard here from Terry's very thorough hormone presentation, is a hormone disruptor, okay? And we realize it's going to take a lot of years and a lot of research to really figure out what is happening in that. It's such a complicated thing. But there are a few, but you have to get funding to do research. And There aren't too many independent funders that will be doing this research, unfortunately. Most research is backed by some corporation. It's how they get their money today. In the old days, in our younger days, our own federal government was paying for a lot of research. But over the years, they've cut those budgets, and cut those budgets, and cut those budgets. So that research is not being done. So I do think there are some solutions, though, actually. And in my research, one is aiming towards zero waste. I mean, unfortunately, we have the horrible condition that if we quit sending our garbage to the incinerator in Peekskill, it's just going to get garbage from someplace else in order to stay in business, okay? But it's something to go for, and it will send a message. It will send a message that it can be done. It can be done, okay? But here's your home, okay? And if we got into really the reuse and repair part of the 3 R's that we've been taught over the years about taking care of our waste, reusing things, okay, in the sense that maybe you don't need it, but somebody else could use it, okay? Or even shopping that way. There are people that purposely go to thrift shops. I mean, I have occasionally gone over to the one in Mount Kisco because they have better stuff, okay? But going to thrift shops, sometimes you can find some really great things. But repair. It's so hard to repair things today. It is, it really is. There's so few places that will actually repair things. And many times it's much more expensive than buying it originally. But, you know, if you're really gung-ho about it. I mean, in Peekskill used to have a couple of repair places, and they've gone out of business. People just don't get their things repaired. And there are not a lot of things. There's actually legislation proposed to make things repairable. And that you yourself can repair it with directions on how you yourself can repair it, okay? But there's also in New York State legislation, and that's on the back page, I think, of your handout. There's legislation in progress in our state legislation to actually address this problem. It's putting you, the manufacturer, the producer, they call it, you have to be responsible for your product till the very end, to the cradle. You have to be responsible, okay? And right now, I should stop for questions. Anybody have questions up to this point?
I'm sorry. The detergent and like just dishwashing detergent. Has anyone used one of those products? You know, I'm tempted to buy the sheets, but I heard they don't work as well. Does anyone? Yeah. Great.
Basically, they've taken all the water out of it and condensed it down into this. This is just that. So, vapor, okay,
Can we see it? Yeah.
and I'm going to pan this around, okay? There's other brands. If you go inside, there are other brands. I'm not trying to sell that brand, okay?
I've been using for my laundry a company called Drops. It comes in the mail, and it's
Say that name,
DROPPS.
which is another brand.
Yeah, another brand.
And Goodell?
I have used those sheets for about the last year. And I would say I don't notice that they work less than regular liquid soap. I can't remember the name of the brand, though.
And there, because I do a lot of gardening, I will take my liquid detergent, because my knees get all brown from kneeling into the dirt and that stuff, and I'll put the liquid detergent on my knees and my jeans just so they come a little cleaner. And they do have actually you know how so many detergents today have OxyClean in them, okay, which kind of gives a boost to the whites. Well, there are companies out there that, and I've got a little carton with a scoop in it that it's enzymes, and it basically helps brighten up, make your, if you really want your whites to be whiter or whatever, okay? But on that very topic is, so this is, you can do, the company I've been dealing with will sell you products to wash your dishes in the sink dishwashing. You can get it in an aluminum can. All the aluminum that's ever been produced in the United States, 84% of it is still being used because it's the most recyclable thing there is, aluminum. It can be melted down and used again and again and again and again, okay? I think you have to clean it somewhat, okay? This is just me talking as a personal, but the fact that they're melting it down, they probably, if there's a little bit of food on your aluminum foil, it will probably get brushed off as part of the garbage and then processed or whatever. But really, everything should be washed before it's put out in your recycling bin, especially the plastics. I mean, the plastics are not recyclable if they're dirty. They're not recyclable, or downcycled, I should say. But for the dish soap, these are tablets, okay? And you just I've taken my old dish soap thing, put these tablets in there, fill it up with water, works just as well, okay? The question was, what about the dishwasher? There are products, unfortunately, the commercial products that come in those little packets, they've got the packets made out of plastic. But there are products that is not made out of plastic if you go looking for them. Right now, those things are more expensive. And somebody pointed out to me how that really impacts people that are always looking at the bottom line or that can't afford the better stuff, okay? But my feeling is we are in a consumer world, okay? And if we demand these products, they'll make them in larger amounts and the price will come down. The price will come down. So these are little hand sheets, a similar thing as the laundry sheets. You can pass that around, okay? Out of what?
I was just saying you can make your own detergent out of a good soap and just make it in small pieces and add water.
Normally, most of us don't manufacture soap in our house. Paper. I got them online. So the same company that's online, but there's lots of, you go to Zero Waste, that's another company. There are waste. Okay, so this is, and I've found this because I have a big hairy dog that leans against things and makes them dirty, okay? And so I've used this product. Some things I've used and liked. I like this product just fine. And so what this company does is they send you the cleaning solution in this little tiny glass bottle with an aluminum top. They send you the glass bottle with a squirter, and now, basically you just can use this glass bottle over and over and just buy the little bottle of cleaning solution. It's stronger than regular dish soap. It is stronger. It does a better job. But on that topic also, I'm trying to try all these things, okay? And one thing I found out is that most of our tea bags in the United States are made out of polyester. And so, in my craziness, you could call it, okay, I went and bought my daughter all this. You used to be able to buy this in the grocery store, your tea a loose tea in a can, okay? You can't anymore, at least my grocery stores, but you can get it online. Of course, it costs more money, unfortunately, that way too. And I'm trying this next when my toothpaste runs out. It's tablets. You take one tablet, let it dissolve in your mouth. It's going to get all foamy, and then use that instead of toothpaste. But what's crazy is in a book that I gave to Jenny to finish reading, and she can pass it along, the year of no garbage, this woman does a similar thing, but I did it all on the web. She did it in real life. In real life, she was going to have no garbage go to the curb, period, okay, for a whole year. And she found out that Tom's, which I happen to be using for years, Tom's toothpaste has switched to, oh, you got it, okay. Okay, so Tom's, which is, I've used that toothpaste for years, is switched to a recyclable plastic tube, but the one she points out in the year of no garbage is it's going along that conveyor belt in the recycling center with all the different plastics, and they say, oh, there's a Tom's, that's recyclable. Oh, that's not recyclable, that's a Colgate, or that's a, whatever other brand it is, okay? They're not going to do that. They can't differentiate that. It's not going to happen. And what happened to the metal toothpaste holders? What was wrong? What was wrong with that, really, honestly? No, you go to, my daughter, I gave this presentation to my daughter and the rest of my family, and I said, I can't seem to find any powdered laundry detergent. The whole aisle is big things of plastic. It's concentrated, but everything, and also many times your dishwashing is. I have to go to my health food store to buy dishwashing detergent that you put in the dishwasher that in a powdered form. That's the only place I can find it anymore. And this is seventh generation, which is really, we always think of as a more environmentally sensitive company. It's just that plastic has crept into every little parts of our life, and the more you look around, it's just everywhere. It is really, really hard to avoid.
A lot of people won't wear anything that's leather or suede, and they're wearing plastic. So it's very, very difficult. You're solving one problem and creating another one.
No, it is true. It is true. You could really just throw up your hands and give up. You could very easily. So this is another product that it's the dishwashing detergent packs, which are not packs, the little packs that you put in your dishwasher. They're not made out of plastic. So this company, I'm not going to tell you the name of the company, but they sell those, okay? But here, you can tell if something is metal or if it's aluminum. If it's metal, a magnet will hit to it. If it's aluminum, it won't. It just won't hit. But the curious thing about this incinerator up at Charles Point is, when the garbage gets dumped out of the truck, they have magnets there. They pull out the metals. And why? Because their ash is already toxic enough, and if it's full of metals, it makes it even more toxic and harder for them to dispose of, okay? But they also know that metals have a value, okay? And they can sell the metals and get some money for them, okay? And Carl's girlfriend's daughter goes around and collects aluminum all over the place and takes it just up the street to Brookfield, the metal recycling place, and gets enough money for all the cat food that they need. So aluminum is very, very valuable.
I know you're not trying to endorse any products, but would you mind sending the list of people some of the products that you're using? Because that would be great just to know.
I will, on a personal level, send you websites where you can get the products, okay? And then the other part of the whole equation is we should be asking our stores to have our regular stores, so you don't have to go to some special store and get this stuff. We should be asking for them. And many stores are receptive to that if enough people ask for it. Another solution is to refill. And on your paper handout is a picture of a refill store with its aisle, okay? And basically, I went for the first time down to Hastings, and so they have four different shampoos you've never heard of, okay? Unfortunately, in big glass bottles, and you can refill your container. And so I tried the first one. I wasn't terribly happy. It's going to be a process of search, basically. Which ones are going to work, but it's an idea. And you know, in ShopRite nearby here in Croton, there was an aisle with the health foods where you could get certain nuts and different things. Well, they've discontinued that. Yeah. No. That was all during the pandemic. They had it just in the last couple of months that they discontinued. Just in the last couple of months. Yeah. Yeah, right. You put it in a plastic bag. Unless you bring your own bags. And that's one solution, is to ask for more. I would maybe like it better for, like we're talking about, your soaps and your beauty products and things like that, or whatever, that you come and bring your own refill thing. But it will be a process, because that on their part they have to figure out how to charge you. Really, that's the process. But the third part of this is that there is this bill in our own state legislature that puts the responsibility back on the producer. The bill incentivizes sustainable packaging and has mandatory reductions in quantity and bans toxics. So it's identified the toxics, the most common toxics that are attached to our plastics, and they're basically saying no new toxics, okay? No new plastics with no new toxics, okay? And then it asks those producers within 30 months, and those producers they can be from all over, but they ship anything into New York State, they're a producer of plastic, they have to create a plan within 2 years for submission to an advisory committee who will gauge the plan for the compliance, and then they'll give them the okay. But and then they have to reduce the weight of the plastic by 10% in 3 years, 20% in 5 years, 40% in 10 years, and 50% in 12 years, okay? And they will be paying a fee for the amount of plastic they are actually producing and sending to our ship. And that fee then will go to all the recycling municipalities in New York and reduce the cost of recycling in New York State. So the bill is taking the responsibility and putting it back on the producer of plastic and reducing the responsibility on our end. I do have, some of you have already signed it, but some of you haven't. I do have a petition because this plan was put together actually in conversation with the producers, okay? That's why there's longer, they're trying to be reasonable. They made fairly long timetables there, okay, where it can be done. Governor Hochul, of course, and I'm not saying anything negative about her necessarily, but she's getting it from both sides, like any politician, okay? And rather than having it put into place in a shorter amount of time, she would like to have, with Beyond Plastic and Senator Harkin, our senator here, he would like to have 50% in 12 years. Well, Hochul would like 15% in 10 years, okay? So she wants it to go out farther and farther and farther, basically, and put it off. I'd like it yesterday, really honestly. But we have another question.
Jerry, is there kind of a user-friendly name for this bill other than the S and the A numbers? Does it have a name like Producer Responsibility or Organization Act or something?
It does have a name, and I don't know why I don't remember the name for some reason. Yeah, but I'm urging you to, if you haven't already signed my petition, to sign it. I'll send it on to Governor Hochul. And we have another question.
You were talking about the refill places. I haven't seen this, but I did see a program where when you bring in your own plastics from your home or whatever you're refilling in, it could be glass as well, you weigh it first. They write the weight on it, and then you subtract that from the weight of whatever you buy. Yeah.
And Jenny's been good enough to, the packaging reduction and recycling. No, wait. What? That's a summary. I still don't. No, the packaging and reduction is part of the name, but that's a whole paragraph. But you were looking for a quick little title, basically. There is a title, the name of it, but it is basically the focus is reducing, and then putting the focus back on the producer and making them more responsible for their product and what happens to it. Okay.
Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act. Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act.
No wonder I couldn't remember. I thank you for coming, and if you have any questions, feel free to talk. And then if some of you want to go, here we are at 11 o'clock, go have a bite to eat or a cup of coffee and talk about it some more. I'm willing to do that also.
Thank you.